I woke up that Saturday with my heart accelerated, not by nervousness, but by a silence that enveloped me like a warning. It was my wedding day, the day that for so long I imagined, surrounded by hugs of smiles, accomplices of glances, emotional from my parents, from my uncles, of my cousins. The day that in my mind, my mother would help me fix the veil, my sister would cry with emotion when she saw me, see my father walking down the aisle, and my father would give me his arm with pride. I imagined this so many times that, even knowing who my family was, I still insisted on waiting for them. But what I received was the opposite. My cell phone vibrated for the third time that morning. I caught it with a shaking hand. It was a photo, a selfie at the entire airport, smiling with passports in hands, the family group that I knew since I was a child, together, but without me. My mother wrote with that irony, plowed with lightness, "We are in Paris, honey. Your sister needed to relax before the master's degree starts. Good luck there at the wedding." And as if that wasn't already a punch in the stomach, my sister replied in another group, the one where I was never included. "She won't even last married, this parasite. Imagines the groom just like him." The moment I felt the air disappear, it wasn't just their absence, it was cruelty. It was confirmation of everything I always knew but pretended not to see, that family, you never wanted me around. I was the mistake, silent, the daughter's uncomfortable presence, who didn't suit the sister, who didn't fit to show off beautiful photos of the dress. It was hanging next to the white bed, simple, beautiful. I chose it myself. I paid with my own money. All event participants, without the help of anyone. And now, in that instant, what should be one of the most highlights of my life, I just seemed empty. I sat on the edge of the bed. Makeup hadn't been done yet, but the tears were already threatening to fall. I thought about how much it hurt me growing up in that house where everything was a dispute, where love was conditioning and praise rationed. I thought about the nights when I heard conversations leak through the wall, my mother saying that she was the one who gives more work than my sister. Yes, was promising. I thought about birthdays forgotten, the achievements ignored, and the words that hurt more than any absence. But there, with the cell phone in hand and the dress before me, an angry Serena began to make a decision. Whether they wouldn't come for love, it didn't matter. I didn't need their presence to make this moment count, because in that moment, the altar was not for them. That I would be, it was for me. I got up. I slowly walked to the mirror and looked at my reflection. My eyes were marked, but firm, and I understood that pain, that carried since childhood, was also strength. It was also a deep root that supported me, even when the world collapsed around. And at that moment, I made my first big decision. One day, I would smile. I would get married, and I would do something they would never do. I would forget. I put the cell phone aside, and I took a deep breath. I didn't cry for the first time, once in many years. I didn't cry because at that moment, something inside me broke, and at the same time, was born another part of me. Got tired of asking for crumbs from those who only knew how to serve poison. The hairdresser arrived on time, excited about her brushes and her energy. "Sweet, where is the bridesmaids?" "Your mother will help with the hairstyle," she asked distractedly as I started to separate the strands of my hair. I gave a slight smile, controlling the knot in my throat. "Today, it's just me," I replied, "but it's okay." She looked at me in the mirror with that look that says it all without needing words. Maybe she felt my sadness hidden between the makeup, but with delicacy, respected my silence. While she was fixing my hair, I opened my cell phone again, scrolled through the gallery photos until I found the right image. I touched it, and her heart beat hard. That was the moment that was mine. Trump the photo that no one of mine family expected to see. I sent it to the group of the family, the only one where I was still, those who have united against me, those who laughed at my absence. It was a yes, image of me next to a man, gray hair, expression gentle, look affectionately, he smiled with his eyes, and I hugged him like he was my daughter there on my lap. The caption I wrote was short, but sure, is the man who will take me down the aisle. "Thank you for coming, Señor Federico. You were always more like family than any of them." Federico was my childhood best friend's father. When my own family laughed at me, he lent me his pains, listened, and gave me real advice. When I cried in silence, he said that I was strong, that I never deserved more. Treated me like a person, never ignored, never belittled me. He wasn't my father by blood, but he was certainly the father I would like to have. Notification of viewing appeared almost instantly. My mother saw, my sister saw it, and seconds later, the phone calls started ringing after ringing. First, my mother, I then ignored. My father, who never speaks with me, but now he seemed to remember that I existed. I also ignored it. My sister tried one video call, as if you could erase that with one click. I hung up all notifications, smiling with my soul because I knew that for the first time, they were the ones who always made me feel exclusion, silence, coldness. They were finally outside. The ceremony car arrived, and when I entered, I looked at the sky. No tears, regret, just the certainty that even though the altar was surrounded by empty chairs from one side to the other side, it would be full of real love from those who knew that there is no need for a blood tie to be real. Federico was waiting for me at the door of the church with an emotional smile, and his eyes tearful when he saw me. He extended his arm and said, "Can I take it?" Echoing inside me like a cannon, this is my moment. Family is who stays, those who really knew me were there. The music started playing, and with firm steps, I entered. There was nothing missing. As I walked down the aisle, I looked around. I waved towards the photographer subtly. He got the message and took another photo, a new image. I entered with dignity, without the absent, without the false, without those who said meha, but with the whole heart and with a surety. What my mother and sister laughed about in Paris would be swallowed dry in the next few hours because what they lost was much bigger than a trip. The ceremony took place like a sober dream. It was everything I imagined, without excess, without ostentation, but with meaning in every detail. The flowers that I chose carefully seemed more alive under the evening light. The playing of the violin echoed softly through the nave of the church, and the look of my fiancé, standing, waiting for me at the altar, carried everything I never found inside home: respect, love, and that kindness that calms. But even in the midst of so much beauty, there was an invisible sound to me, prowling, the sound of empty chairs. Because they were there, the seats reserved for my family, empty, each with a name written, each name like an opening exposed to the light of the day. The space they left was not just physical. It was memory, was absence transformed into weight. I felt a tightness in my chest when the look of one of the bridesmaids crossed mine. She was friends with my childhood and knew each silent humiliation that I experienced in that home. Her eyes said, "I know," and at the same time, "She got this to me," held. But my restless mind insisted on going back in time, to my birthday when I was only 9 years old. I received a simple gift from a neighbor, a handmade rag doll. My mother laughed when she saw it and said out loud for everyone to hear, "It looks like something from a thrift store." But that's her face. Everyone laughed, me too, but just to keep from crying. I remembered the time when my sister was approved for a trip, international school, and all celebrated with dinner, photos, and a toast. The following year, when I was awarded for an essay contest, my mother replied with a dry, cool, but that doesn't pay the bill." I remembered silence when I told her I was getting married. From Suspiro, bored of my mother's laughter, my sister said, "Who will go pity her enough to say yes?" My heart was tight inside while smiling on the outside, but that's when I looked at my fiancé's face, there at the altar. Something inside me sat. He looked at me as if I were the center of everything, as if in that moment nothing more existed beyond our promise, and that's what brought me back. That's it. That kept me from sinking into memories. Federico shook my hand while still holding my side and whispered, "You didn't come alone, you never came here." That sentence hugged me, and when I gave the first step with him towards the altar, it was as if I were there too, walking away from everything that bothered me, hurt. When I got to my side, fiancé Federico handed me over, as ordered by tradition. But he did it with a care that no protocol could oblige him. He whispered, "The world failed you, my girl, but you didn't fail the world. Never forget that." The words remained recorded in my mind. The ceremony followed, and while the vows were said, I allowed myself to feel. I felt proud of myself, I felt courage, and I felt a peace that for so long, I thought I didn't deserve. When the applause came, they sounded like liberation. But it was in leaving the church that the unexpected happened. The cell phone of one of the guests vibrated too loudly. She caught it, disguising, I saw her eyes wide and then looking at me with surprise. She whispered something to the godmother next door. In a few seconds, the cell phone started to pop up with notifications in different hands. They commented too loudly. They didn't post. Maybe I approached, confused, and she turned the screen to me. It was a new photo posted on my sister's profile, celebrating love in Paris with who really matters, family. This hit my heart cold. They were laughing, toasting, and making a show of showing the world that I didn't matter that day. Never. But at that moment, instead of me taking it down, that made me take a deep breath and lift my chin. Because there, between so many witnesses, I understood, victory wasn't theirs. It was never theirs. Paris. But I had what none of them ever built, respect and a love that didn't need a stage for there to be. Reception was set up with care. Everything had been carefully planned by me and for the man who was now my husband. Lights hanging in the garden trembled with a glow like low stars. The tables were delicately decorated with lavender and details in gold. It was a scene of dreams, but the ghosts were still around. I sat for a moment near a tree, where the wind seemed to blow the strongest. A cold breeze passed through my neck and brought me that old feeling of being alone, even in the middle of a crowd. But I wasn't alone. Bridesmaids surrounded me with friends. It's true that they never turned their back on me. They hugged me. One of them, tenderly, Anna Louis, bent down beside me and said, "Do you think who lost something because they weren't here? But I see something else. You freed yourself." The words hit me with strength. For the first time, someone said the things that I still couldn't admit to myself, and somehow, that freed me a little more. I got up with a new look. I walked to the center of the party, where everyone was already waiting for the bride and groom's toast. My husband took the cup first. He spoke calmly, thanked those present, praised love, and then passed the word to me. I took my cup. The sound of the crystal among my fingers was firm, unlike my heart, which was still shaking. I took a deep breath and looked around. When I was a child, I said that I wanted a big family. I wanted everyone to look at me with pride, applaud my victories, be by my side when I fell. But time has taught me that not every absence hurts and that not everything is synonymous with love. Eyes around me filled, but I continued, "Today, some chairs are empty." But that's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of liberation. Those chairs were occupied by people who laughed at my falls, diminished my dreams, and called me a parasite. Today, they are far away, and I am at peace because here, around me, there is only the love that really deserves it. I raised the glass. So, my toast is for you, who chose to see me, those who didn't need a blood tie to love me, and the man who accepted me for who I am even with the broken parts. You, my true home. The applause that came later wasn't just a celebration. It was a collective hug, a recognition. And in a way, a prayer. Later, as we danced under the lights of the garden, one of the bridesmaids pulled me by the arm. "Did you see what your sister posted now?" My stomach turned. But I caught the cell phone. It was a video. She laughed with my mother on a luxurious balcony, holding a glass. In the background, a man said, "And she got married, what a miracle." My mother responded, laughing, "Oh, but come back here crying. Let's see. We know the guy." I closed the cell phone. This time, it didn't hurt. This time, I just breathed and kept it. Because then I understood, once, their cruelty was predictable. And I was finally immune. So I decided to send one last message, not of pain, but closing. I opened the application, I typed the messages calmly, and sent them to the group. Don't need to worry. Today, I came back crying, I came back in one piece, and I won't be back. But I silenced the group and deactivated it as notifications. I blocked all 3. I left the cell phone aside and went back to the dance floor. My feet hurt, but my chest was light. For the first time, I was the author of my own story, no longer the extra in the theater of contempt of others. And if there was still any emptiness, it was being filled, not by Paris, but by me. 2 days after the wedding, the sun still seemed to smile at me. I was at home, surrounded by flowers sent by people who really cared, opening the last envelopes of congratulations. It was strange to realize how many small gestures, a written card in hand, a candy looked at with affection, could weigh more than years of life. Family imposed the silence of the morning. It was comfortable until the moment I heard the sound of the gate. My husband opened the window and frowned. "It's a delivery," he said. My stomach dropped. Your mother turned around at the same moment. I slowly went downstairs. Outside, over the mailbox, there was a thick beige envelope with my name completely written in the artificially whimsical calligraphy of my sister. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a golden invitation. "We are organizing a dinner celebration of the trip. We are waiting for you. Bring your husband along." With the invitation was a photo of my mother, my father, my sister, and some relatives standing in front of the Eiffel Tower with the true caption, "Celebration of Love." My chest was full of cold anger. That message, that invitation, was a provocation, a trap. With elegant makeup, they wanted me to test if I would still bend like I always did. But something inside me no longer allowed it. I went into the house and sat on the sofa, staring at the invitation for a few minutes. That's when I decided to do something I'd never done in life. Not only ignore it, but respond in my own way, without shouting, without drama, just with truth. I went to the backyard, lit a small fire in the corner of the garden, and held the invitation between my fingers. The thin and expensive paper fluttered with the wind, and before throwing it into the flames, I took a photo. The image was clear, the fire consuming the golden edges, the flame rising until it turned everything into ashes. I sent it to my mother's number. No caption. No explanations. Seconds later, the messages started to fall. "Mom, you are crazy. Sister, you will never stop being ungrateful, right?" I blocked both of them, and once more, without hesitation. For the first time in my life, there was no room for fear in me. There was no room for doubt, guilt, or longing. Because longing is something that only happens in the feeling of what once existed, and love coming from them, what I had never experienced, was an illusion. And illusion, at a precise time, dies to make room for the real. That night, I prepared a simple dinner with my husband. He looked at me with curiosity. "You look different," he said, smiling. "Stronger." I shook my head. "I'm not slow-headed. Different, I'm only whole, for the first time." After dinner, we returned to the balcony. The night was cold, but my chest was warm. The cell phone vibrated one last time. It was an unknown number. I answered on impulse. It was my dad. His voice was low, maybe embarrassed. "You won't give any response? Won't show up at dinner?" I thought for a while. A moment later, I calmly replied. "I gave mine. But you never learn to listen to what doesn't come in a shout." He tried to insist, but I had already said my piece. I turned everything off, and when the silence came back, it wasn't empty. It was liberating. At that moment, I knew they could keep laughing and toasting, putting on a facade of happiness, but what matters most is the peace of knowing that I am no longer a hostage. This week, following, was calm. For the first time in many years, my life seemed to breathe at its own pace, without needing to run after acceptance, without having to prove my worth, without living, waiting for someone. Somewhere, in that moment, I saw me as something other than a nuisance, and it was in this calm that I realized the company I built with effort flourished. We won new contracts, and the small space we had at home was filled with love. My husband looked at me with pride every day, as if he saw in me, not only his wife, but a strong, whole woman, conscious, free. Messages from my family stopped, not because they accepted my decision, but because maybe they couldn't bear to see that it was real, that I had, in fact, left the cycle that never comes back, crawling, as they so often made a point of waiting for. But destiny sometimes has a curious way to reveal what needs to be seen. A month after the wedding, I was invited to a local awards ceremony, a simple city event that honored women entrepreneurs who made a difference in the community. I almost refused. I didn't want a stage. I didn't need a trophy. But a friend insisted. "You don't understand, right? Just being where you are is already a trophy." So, I went. I wore a simple dress, low shoes, and loose hair, a lightness on my face. When I entered the auditorium, I saw some familiar faces, and one froze me for a second, my sister. She was there with the empty expression of those who didn't know whether to stay or not. She disappeared. I discovered afterward that she had tried to write her own name on the award but was disqualified for presenting inflated data about a project that never left the paper. I sat at the front, without facing her, when my name was announced. The applause came, and when I went on stage with the microphone in hand, I looked at the audience for a few seconds before saying anything. I grew up hearing that I would never be anyone, that my place was outside the way, that everything I did was little and foolish. For a long time, I believed that. I believed the problem was me, that maybe if I tried harder, if I was sweeter, more obedient, more invisible, they would love me back. I stopped for a moment, feeling the attentive silence of the room. But today, I know the problem wasn't me, it was my strength. The problem was that my light bothered those who only knew how to live in applause shadows. I squeezed my throat, but I didn't cry. So, I dedicate this recognition to all women who, one day, felt like a burden. You are not. You are root. You are seed, and if they don't know how to see, it's they who lose. From the stage, my steps were firm, almost in slow motion. As I passed my sister, I noticed that she turned her face, and there, in that gesture, I realized she knew. She knew who had lost, the last chance to maintain control, to be sure that I would return, to keep mastery over the history that, from then on, they would no longer write without consulting me. As I exited, I found a lady who handed me a note. It was from Senor Federico. I'm very proud of you. You blossomed. I always accompany you from afar, with a father's affection. I held that paper as if it were a bond of affection materialized. And it was that night, when I got home, that my husband was waiting for me with 2 glasses of grape juice and a candle lit on the table. How about we toast to the new, just the 2 of us, he said. I sat down. I smiled. I raised the glass to freedom. I whispered, we toast. Because, in the end, the greatest revenge is being happy, in silence, is being truly loved, is never coming back. Here comes the end of another beautiful story on the channel. Tell us where you watch our channel from.